This video will go over how FUDSChem's built-in Automated Data Review, or ADR, functions. We will discuss how to set up the rules that govern the ADR's behavior. For information on the data inputs that affect the ADR and the end results, please refer to our How Does ADR Work Part 2 video, linked in the description. The ADR's behavior is determined by the EQAP setup and the flagging setup. Let's go to Tools, Data, EQAP Setup to view the EQAP for our project. The QC Elements tab allows you to define which QC elements the ADR should look for, and which flags to apply if it finds them. You can see the flags listed here. Let's also look at the Analyte Criteria tab. The Analyte Criteria tab allows you to define the limits at which those flags will be applied. For more information, please refer to our EQAP Tutorials playlist, linked in the description. The data on these tabs is summarized in report format under Reports, Environmental Setup Reports. Let's take a look at the QC Elements report first. Fill out the drop-downs, then click View Report. This report shows the QC elements and validation flags associated with each analysis method, just like we saw in the EQAP interface. Each column lists the detect flag, followed by the non-detect flag. For example, a column that reads J/UJ will apply J flags to detects and UJ flags to non-detects. The lower and upper reject columns are not meant to imply that data exceeding these limits will have an X or R qualifier applied to it. Instead, the columns are meant to help differentiate between marginal exceedances, listed in the control columns, and gross exceedances, listed in the reject columns. They will apply whichever flag is listed on this report. For example, if the upper reject column lists an X flag, then an X flag will be applied. If the upper reject column lists a J flag, then a J flag will be applied. On this report, we can see some instances where the control and reject flag are the same. If there is no difference in how you qualify a gross exceedance and a marginal exceedance, then the control and reject columns should have the same qualifier listed. Do not leave one blank. Let's go back to Reports, Environmental Setup Reports, and choose Analyte Criteria. Let's fill out the drop-downs. Click View Report. This report shows the QC elements defined by the EQAP for each individual analyte in the methods. For example, it shows which compounds are to be included in matrix spikes, laboratory control samples, etc. The control and reject limits listed on this report determine how the ADR will apply the flags listed in the QC Elements report. The default values for the control limits come from the QSM version that the user selected on the Copy QAP tab. The default rejection limits come from the National Functional Guidelines. If you want to change the point at which flags are applied, you can update these numbers in the EQAP Setup tool. This report highlights values that have been modified from the original template. Mousing over a highlighted row will open a pop-up showing the default template values for easy comparison, so you can make sure the ADR will be applying flags correctly for your project. In this example, we can see there are some QC elements where the same number is used for the control and reject points for all listed analytes. If we look back at the flags on the QC elements report, we can see that these are the same QC elements that have matching control and reject flags. Therefore, the ADR will not treat a marginal exceedance any differently than a gross exceedance for these elements. Let's go back to Reports, Environmental Setup Reports, and choose Flagging Setup. Note that this report does not correspond with any of the EQAP tabs. If the flagging setup needs to be edited, please reach out to your Synectics point of contact. Fill out the drop-downs and click View Report. This report shows the flagging rules to be used by the ADR, such as DoD guidelines or National Functional Guidelines. It has 5 main sections: Validation Reference, Dilution and Spike Criteria Rules, Duplicate Rules, Blank Contaminant Rules for Action Level, and Blank QC Elements with Missing Control Limits. The Validation Reference section shows which validation type will be used for the project for blank contamination. The type can be set to DoD Guidelines, National Functional Guidelines, or EM 200, and is generally determined at the district level. If DoD guidelines are selected, then the DoD blank guidelines are automatically followed. Per these guidelines, a J+ qualifier will be used if blank results are greater than the DL or LOD, and the sample result is above the LOQ but less than 5 times the blank. The Dilution and Spike Criteria Rules section displays the rules the ADR uses when determining whether to qualify data in the following cases. 1. When there are dilutions of the matrix spike or surrogate, or 2. When there are background concentration levels in the matrix spike. The Duplicate Rules section displays the rules the ADR uses to qualify each type of precision element and the criteria that will be used. A rule of RPD will qualify the data based on the relative percent difference, RPD, between the results. A rule of 1XRL will qualify the data based on the RPD between the results if the result is greater than 1 times the LOQ. However, if the result is less than or equal to the LOQ, it will qualify the results based on the difference of the results compared to the LOQ. Note that a solid matrix allows for 2 times the LOQ. A rule of 5XRL will qualify the data based on the RPD between the results if the result is greater than 5 times the LOQ. If the result is less than or equal to 5 times the LOQ, it will qualify the results based on the difference of the results compared to the LOQ. Again, a solid matrix allows for 2 times the LOQ. The Blank Contaminant Rules for Action Levels section shows the multiplier for common laboratory contaminants that will be used to raise concentration limits without flagging the data. Usually, these are between 1 to 10 for the contaminants listed. Multipliers listed in this section are populated based on the validation guidelines selected in the Blank Evaluation Validation Reference section. The Blank QC Elements with Missing Control Limits section will display analytes for which a blank QC element exists, but for which there is no blank criterion in the EQAP. In this case, you should work with your team to correct any instances by adding blank criteria to the EQAP or by removing the QC element if it is not needed. For information on the data inputs that affect the ADR, and how the ADR evaluates the data based on the setup we discussed here, please refer to our How Does ADR Work Part 2 video, linked in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to the FUDSChem YouTube channel for more tutorial videos. All of the tutorials and playlists mentioned during this video are linked in the description below. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, feel free to contact us at fuds.support@synectics.net. Thank you.